The morning Officer Daniel Hayes lost his K-9 partner. The sky over Pine Ridge felt unusually low, as if the clouds themselves were pressing down on the earth. Rain had been falling for 2 days straight, soaking the hills behind the town and turning old forest paths into streams of mud. Daniel had been on duty since dawn, responding to minor calls, downed trees, flooded basements. Nothing unusual for this time of year. Still, he felt uneasy. Ranger, his 6-year-old Belgian Malinois, paced restlessly in the back of the patrol vehicle, ears alert, sensing what Daniel could not yet name. At 8:41 a.m. the call came in. A missing contractor near the abandoned quarry road, an area already flagged for unstable ground. Daniel didn't hesitate. Ranger was trained for tracking and disaster response, one of the best in the county. As they drove, Daniel's thoughts briefly drifted to his daughter Lily, who had hugged Ranger tightly before school that morning and whispered, "Come back safe." She always said that. Ranger always licked her cheek in response. The trail started quietly. Ranger picked up the scent quickly, leading Daniel downhill toward a narrow ravine where rainwater had been carving through loose soil all night. Then the sound came. A deep crack, sharp and sudden, followed by a roar that shook the ground beneath Daniel's boots. The hillside gave way without warning. Earth, stone, and broken trees surged forward. Daniel felt himself thrown back, his shoulders slamming hard against rock. He shouted Ranger's name once, then again, his voice swallowed by chaos. When the noise finally stopped, the ravine was gone. Where Ranger had been seconds earlier, there was only mud and debris. Rescue teams arrived within minutes, pulling Daniel to safety as he fought to go back. They searched for hours, then days. Drones, thermal imaging, additional K-9 units. Nothing. On the 4th day, command made the call. The terrain was too unstable. Ranger was officially listed as deceased. Daniel signed the report without speaking. At home, the silence was unbearable. Lily ran to the door when she heard the patrol car, calling Ranger's name. When she saw Daniel alone, she didn't cry. She just stood there, small and still. That night, she placed Ranger's water bowl by the door and filled it carefully. "In case he's thirsty," she said softly. Daniel didn't have the heart to move it. He sat awake long after Lily slept, staring at the door, telling himself that some heroes simply don't come home. But deep inside, something refused to settle. The days after Ranger's loss moved slowly, each one heavier than the last. Daniel returned to work after mandatory leave, functioning on routine alone. He filed reports, answered calls, followed protocol. His fellow officers treated him gently, avoiding Ranger's name as if silence might protect him. It didn't. Every empty space in the patrol vehicle reminded him of what was missing. Every quiet moment echoed. At home, Lily changed in ways Daniel didn't expect. She stopped asking questions. She stopped crying. Instead, every evening before bed, she took Ranger's bowl from the cabinet, washed it, and placed it by the door. She filled it with fresh water each time. When Daniel finally asked why, she answered simply, "He might come back late." Daniel nodded, telling himself children processed grief differently. Still, the sight unsettled him. One night at dinner, Daniel carefully mentioned that the department might assign him a new K-9 someday. Lily froze. She didn't yell. She didn't argue. She just said, "Ranger isn't replaceable," and left the table. Daniel sat alone long after the food grew cold, wondering whether he was protecting his daughter from pain or protecting himself from hope. Lily began drawing constantly. Daniel noticed the sketchbook one afternoon while cleaning her room. Page after page showed the same dog, drawn from different angles. Ranger's stance was unmistakable, alert yet calm. On every drawing, Lily marked one detail darker than the rest: Ranger's back leg. The scar. Daniel's breath caught. That injury hadn't been visible unless you knew where to look. He closed the book gently and put it back. A week later, Lily came home from school unusually quiet. She stood in the doorway, backpack still on, eyes wide but steady. "Dad," she said softly, "I saw him." Daniel knelt in front of her, heart tightening. "Saw who?" Lily didn't hesitate. "Ranger. Near the old forest road. He was hurt, but it was him." Daniel explained gently about memories, about missing someone so much that your mind fills the gaps. Lily listened, then shook her head. "I know what I saw." That night, Daniel stood by the door long after Lily slept, staring at the water bowl. He didn't refill it. He didn't move it. He simply stood there, torn between reason and something far more dangerous: hope. Outside, the forest lay silent, and somewhere beyond it, unseen and unacknowledged, a bond refused to be buried. Daniel told himself he was being responsible. He told himself logic mattered. Still, when the phone rang 2 days later and an older local named Frank Miller mentioned seeing a limping dog near the restricted forest road, Daniel felt something crack. By the end of the week, similar whispers followed him through town. A shape near the trees. A dog watching from a distance. Always limping. Always gone when approached. That evening, Lily placed her sketchbook on the table and slid it toward him. She had drawn Ranger again, this time standing beside a shadowed figure Daniel didn't recognize. "He's not alone," she said quietly. Daniel didn't argue. He couldn't. The next morning, Daniel drove to the closed forest road. The gate was locked, warning signs bolted in place. He continued on foot, heart pounding. Near a rocky outcrop he saw it. A paw print preserved in dried mud. Large. Familiar. The spacing uneven. A limp. Daniel followed the trail until it vanished beneath loose stone. He didn't need more. The wall inside him finally gave way. When Daniel returned home, Lily looked at him and smiled, just slightly. "You saw him," she said. Daniel nodded. That was enough. They returned together the following afternoon. Lily walked close behind, calm, certain. She stopped suddenly and pointed. "This way." Daniel trusted her. Moments later he heard it. A faint, uneven breath. Then Ranger stepped into view, thinner, injured, but unmistakably alive. Daniel dropped to his knees as Ranger collapsed against him, tail thumping weakly. A man emerged from the trees, older, cautious. He explained he'd found Ranger days after the slide and couldn't leave him. Before Daniel could ask more, Ranger stiffened, nose lifting. His body tensed. This wasn't fear. It was recognition. The same alertness Daniel had seen countless times on duty. Ranger was trying to tell him something. Back home, even injured, Ranger refused rest. He paced, sniffed the air, reacting sharply whenever the wind shifted. Daniel remembered his training. Ranger only behaved this way when something was wrong. Very wrong. Late that night, Daniel pulled Ranger's old K9 harness from storage. He didn't put it on. He just held it. Ranger watched him, eyes steady, waiting. Whatever had buried Ranger hadn't finished. And Ranger knew it. The truth came quietly, then all at once. With help from a trusted records clerk and one careful search, Daniel uncovered what the hillside had been hiding. Illegal dumping. Unauthorized drilling beneath unstable ground. The landslide hadn't been an accident. Ranger's alerts led investigators straight to concealed access points buried under debris. Evidence surfaced quickly after that. Arrests followed. The town's tragedy shifted from natural disaster to buried corruption. Daniel never sought credit. He stood back as the truth came out, Ranger resting beside him, finally calm. When the investigation closed, Ranger was officially retired, his service record amended to reflect what everyone now knew. He hadn't stopped doing his job. He'd simply refused to die before it was finished. At home, healing came slowly. Lily cried the first night Ranger slept fully through without pacing. Not from fear but relief. "He's staying," she said. Daniel nodded. "He's home." Ranger's injury healed enough for short walks. Dr. Patel, the veterinarian, was firm. "He's earned rest," she said. Daniel agreed. Retirement didn't feel like an ending anymore. It felt like permission. Weeks later, Lily's school counselor invited Ranger to visit. He lay quietly beside anxious children, accepting small hands and whispered fears. Lily watched with pride. "That's his new job," she told her father. Daniel smiled. Ranger had always known how to make people feel safe. One evening, Lily handed Daniel her sketchbook. The final page showed 3 figures. A man. A girl. A dog lying between them, peaceful. No scar drawn this time. "He doesn't need it anymore," she said. Daniel understood. Life didn't return to what it was before. It became something better. Something honest. Ranger slept by the door again, not because he had to, but because he chose to. The water bowl stayed always full, not out of fear but gratitude. Sometimes what we believe is lost is simply waiting to be found. Not because the ground gives it back, but because love refuses to stop looking. This story reminds us that miracles often arrive quietly, guided by faith, loyalty, and the courage to listen when logic says not to. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today, and remember, what is meant to return will always find its way home.